I, 29 male, am an actuary, which basically means I spend my entire life assessing risk, analyzing data, and predicting outcomes based on established facts. Numbers are clean. They do not lie, they do not manipulate you, and they certainly do not care about their social media presence. My ex-girlfriend, 25 female, on the other hand, was a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer. We had been dating for 2 years. At first, her obsession with aesthetics was harmless enough. It was just taking pictures of her lattes and making sure the lighting was absolutely perfect before we ate dinner. But as her follower count started creeping past 50,000, her grip on reality completely loosened. Our 2-year anniversary fell on a Friday. I really wanted to do something meaningful, so I booked a weekend at a secluded, high-end mountain cabin in Colorado. I also went out of my way to buy her a custom-engraved pendant necklace from a local jeweler. It was not cheap by any means, but it was thoughtful. We went to a really nice dinner in the city before the drive up into the mountains. As dessert arrived, I handed her the velvet box. She opened it, looked at the necklace, and her smile just completely froze. It was that tight, practiced smile of someone trying desperately to hide intense disappointment. She thanked me, but the rest of the dinner was uncomfortably quiet. I genuinely did not understand what the issue was until the next morning. I woke up early at the cabin, went down to the small gym on the property, and sat on a bench between sets. I pulled out my phone and casually opened Instagram. Right there at the very top of my feed was her story, posted late the previous night while I was fast asleep. It was a picture of her holding a glass of wine, looking totally exasperated. The text overlay read, "My boyfriend doesn't even know what Birkin means," followed by a bunch of laughing emojis. Below that, she added, "Just say you're broke and go." For context, a Birkin is a handbag sold by Hermes that ranges from $10,000 to $250,000. It is a brand that literally requires you to build a massive purchase history before they even allow you the sheer privilege of buying one. I make a very comfortable 6-figure salary, but I absolutely do not burn money for sport. I just sat there looking at the screen. I did not feel sadness, and I was not heartbroken. I just felt a cold, calculating clarity. She was publicly humiliating me to pander to an audience of complete strangers, using my financial boundaries as a literal punchline. I did not text her. I did not go back to the room to scream or start a fight. I just tapped the comment box on her actual grid post, which had the exact same caption as her story, and typed, "But I know what single means." Then, I closed Instagram, opened Facebook, and immediately changed my relationship status from in a relationship to single. The reaction was instantaneous. Within 2 minutes, my phone started vibrating violently. I refreshed Instagram, and my comment was gone. A few seconds later, the entire post was gone. Her delete frenzy had officially started. Next came the text messages, dozens of them pouring in. First they were angry, then panicked, then demanding that I come back to the room immediately to talk about my extreme overreaction to a simple internet joke. I walked back to the cabin. She was furiously packing her bags, her face completely red. She started yelling the second I opened the door, telling me I was deeply insecure, that I was embarrassing her in front of her followers, that the post was just a viral trend, and that I obviously had no sense of humor. I did not say a single word. I just packed my own bag, paid the ridiculous cancellation fee for the rest of the weekend, and drove us all the way back to the city in absolute, suffocating silence. When we finally got back to my apartment, I turned to her and simply told her to pack the rest of her things and leave. She stopped pacing the living room and looked at me with this incredibly smug smirk. She told me no. She said she lived there. She received her mail there. She had been there for 8 months, and I could not just kick her out. She crossed her arms and told me she knew her rights. The worst part was that she was right. Tenancy laws protected her. I walked into my home office, shut the door, and opened my iPad to change the Wi-Fi password. I just wanted to inconvenience her and make it harder for her to post online. But as I opened the browser, her email was still logged in from when she had borrowed my device a few days prior. Right at the very top of her inbox was an alert from a major credit card company congratulating her on her new Sapphire Reserve card. I clicked it. The approval was from 3 weeks ago, and the credit limit was $25,000. But the name on the approval was not hers. It was mine. I sat staring at the screen as the pieces rapidly locked into place. I pulled my own credit report immediately. There it was in black and white. A hard inquiry from a month ago, followed by a brand new account. The balance was already sitting at $14,500. I walked out of the office and found her in the kitchen, casually making a smoothie like the last 4 hours had not even happened. I held up the printed credit report. I didn't yell. My voice was dangerously quiet when I told her she used my social security number to open a credit card. She actually rolled her eyes at me, completely unfazed. She told me to relax, saying we lived together and were practically married, so what was mine was hers. She claimed she needed an established, high-limit line of credit to build her personal brand. Since I had refused to help her get on the Hermes purchase history track, she said she just took initiative and was going to pay the minimums until her brand sponsorships picked up. She was not apologizing. She felt entirely entitled to my identity and my money. I didn't argue with her at all. I just picked up my phone and dialed the non-emergency police line. When the officers arrived, she put on an absolute masterclass of a performance. She cried, she trembled. She told them we were just having a simple domestic dispute because I was financially controlling and trying to ruin her career. The officers pulled me aside and explained exactly what I had feared. Because she had lived there for 8 months, established residency, and received mail, they could not force her to leave. It was a civil matter, and I had to formally and legally evict her. As for the credit card, they took a report for identity theft but told me a detective would have to investigate before any arrests could possibly be made. When the police finally left, she stood in the hallway with her arms crossed, smiling a vicious, triumphant smile. She told me she was staying in the master bedroom. I could take the couch, and if I tried to cut off her internet or her water, she would sue me for an illegal self-help eviction. She made sure to remind me that she had done her research. Over the next week, she made it her absolute mission to make my life a living nightmare, hoping I would just break down and leave the apartment to her. She blasted loud, copyright-free electronic music during my remote actuarial meetings. She invited her influencer friends over late at night, drinking my expensive scotch and taking selfies in my living room. She even tried to order luxury groceries on my debit card, which I had thankfully already frozen and replaced. I did not react to any of it. I hired a housing lawyer and served her with a formal 30-day notice to vacate. I documented everything. I kept my head down because I knew the law required patience, and I had nothing but time. But her entitlement knew no bounds. She realized I was not going to crack under the pressure, so she decided she needed a shortcut to get me out of my own apartment permanently. On a Tuesday afternoon, I was at a local coffee shop working just to escape the relentless noise of the apartment. When I returned home, there were 2 police cruisers parked out front. As I walked up the steps, an officer intercepted me and handed me a thick stack of papers. It was a temporary restraining order. She had gone to the courthouse that morning and filed a sworn affidavit claiming that I had flown into a blind rage, destroyed the kitchen, and threatened her with a chef's knife. Because domestic violence claims are taken so seriously, a judge signed the ex parte order out of an abundance of caution. The officer looked at me with cold professionalism and told me I had 10 minutes to pack a bag. I could not return to the residence, and I could not contact her in any way, shape, or form until the formal hearing in 14 days. She had actually done it. She had successfully weaponized the legal system to steal my home. I checked into an extended stay hotel on the outskirts of a city. I was furious, but my analytical brain immediately took over. I needed a lawyer. Not just a competent one, but a total shark who specialized in high-conflict civil and criminal crossover cases. I found one. He cost a small fortune for the retainer, but after hearing my story and looking over the paperwork, he leaned back in his leather chair and cracked a slight smile. He told me she was playing a very dangerous game. People often think the courts are like customer service desks where they can just complain and get what they want, completely forgetting that perjury is a major felony. I told my lawyer about the kitchen, and more importantly, I told him about the one crucial detail she had completely forgotten in her blind entitlement. 6 months prior, I had adopted a rescue dog. When I started going back to the office a couple days a week, I bought a discreet pet camera and placed it right on the bookshelf in the living room. It had a perfectly clear view of the kitchen and uploaded directly to a secure cloud server. The weekend this whole mess started, I had set my dog to stay with my sister, so he would not be stressed out by the yelling and the hostile environment. Because the dog was gone, both my ex and I had completely forgotten about the camera. But I had never unplugged it. It was still recording every single thing that happened in that main room. Sitting in my hotel room, I logged into the cloud portal. I scrolled to the exact date and time she listed on the police report for the alleged attack. I hit play and held my breath. I watched in crystal clear high definition as she walked into the completely empty apartment. She looked around to make sure she was alone, walked into the kitchen, grabbed a chef's knife from the wooden block, and used the heavy handle to smash 3 of my dinner plates on the floor. She tipped over a heavy bar stool. Then, she stood perfectly still in the center of the kitchen, took a deep breath to prepare herself, and began screaming at the top of her lungs, begging an invisible attacker to please put the knife down. To finish her absolute masterpiece, she took the blade, carefully sliced the sleeve of her own shirt, threw the knife clattering onto the floor, and pulled out her phone to immediately dial 911. I exported the video and sent it to my lawyer right away. He called me back within minutes. He instructed me not to say a single word about this to anyone. We were not going to show the police yet, and we were certainly not going to show her. He wanted to wait for the hearing. He wanted to let her sit on the stand, place her hand on a Bible, swear an oath, and testify to her lies, so she would lock herself entirely into the perjury trap. But she was still not done escalating things. 2 days before the restraining order hearing, I was served yet again at my hotel. This time it was a massive civil suit. Because we lived in Colorado, she was officially filing for divorce under the claim of a common-law marriage. In Colorado, if you live together and mutually agree to represent yourselves to the community as a married couple, you can be considered legally married without a license. She was claiming we had an agreement, and she was demanding alimony, half of my retirement accounts, and permanent, exclusive possession of my apartment. To satisfy the requirement of representing to others that we were married, she actually attached evidence to her filing. It was a drafted joint federal tax return for the previous year, bearing both of our forged signatures, listing us as married filing jointly. I just stared at the document in total disbelief. I had filed as single. I used a certified CPA. I had never seen this document in my life. She had literally drafted a fake federal tax return and forged my signature just to submit it to the family court to try and steal my life savings. The trap she thought she was setting for me was fully constructed. She genuinely thought she was maneuvering me into a corner I could not escape. She had absolutely no idea she was walking straight into a legal woodchipper. The day of the consolidated hearing finally arrived. The judge was handling both the extension of the restraining order and the preliminary motions for her absurd common-law marriage claim. I sat next to my lawyer at the respondent's table. She sat right across the aisle with a cut-rate attorney she had likely promised a massive percentage of my assets once she won. She looked completely immaculate. She was dressed in soft, neutral colors, looking demure and fragile. She was playing the victim role to absolute perfection. She took the stand. Under direct examination from her attorney, she managed to cry right on cue. She detailed the horrific, fabricated abuse she had supposedly suffered. She recounted the terrifying moment I allegedly came at her with the chef's knife, describing the gleam of the blade and the sheer terror she felt as I destroyed the kitchen and sliced her clothing. Then, it was my lawyer's turn to cross-examine her. He stood up, buttoned his suit jacket, and approached the podium. He was incredibly gentle and polite at first. He walked her through her statement all over again, having her clearly confirm every single specific detail. He asked her if she was absolutely certain, under penalty of perjury, that I was in the apartment at 2:15 p.m. She sniffled and said yes. He asked her if she was certain I broke the plates and sliced her clothing with a knife. She looked right at the judge and said yes, claiming I was totally out of control. My lawyer nodded slowly. He turned to the judge and said he would like to submit Exhibit A into evidence and play it for the court. The courtroom deputy connected my lawyer's laptop to the large monitor facing the judge and the witness stand. My lawyer hit play. The crisp, high-definition footage of the empty apartment filled the screen. Her face instantly went from a perfectly curated mask of sorrow to absolute, bone-chilling panic. The color completely drained from her cheeks. The entire courtroom watched in dead, heavy silence as the video clearly showed her alone, smashing the plates, screaming at the air, and slicing her own shirt. When the video ended, the silence in that courtroom was so heavy you could choke on it. I looked over at her attorney. The man had literally pushed his chair a few inches away from her. The judge slowly took off his glasses. He looked down at her with a mixture of profound disgust and absolute fury. His voice was actually trembling with anger as he told her she had not only wasted the time of his court, but she had maliciously manipulated a system designed to protect actual, real victims of domestic violence. The judge immediately dismissed the restraining order. But he did not stop there. He ordered the courtroom bailiff to hold her right there, and he issued a bench warrant on the spot for felony perjury and filing a false police report. As the bailiff slowly approached her, my lawyer cleared his throat. He told the judge, "We had one more matter regarding the petitioner's claim of common-law marriage." My lawyer handed the judge the forged tax return she had submitted as evidence, followed immediately by my actual, certified IRS transcripts showing I had filed legally as a single man. He then provided the police report containing the identity theft case number regarding the credit card she opened in my name, along with an IP log subpoenaed from the credit card company showing the application was submitted directly from her mobile phone. My lawyer calmly stated for the record that we would be forwarding these forged tax documents to the authorities for fraud, along with the credit card evidence. She completely collapsed. The smug, arrogant entitlement totally vanished, instantly replaced by hysterical, ugly sobbing. She looked over at me, begging with her eyes, pleading for me to say something to stop it. I just sat there, my face entirely blank. Numbers do not lie, and neither did the hard evidence. She was handcuffed right there in the middle of the courtroom and led away by the bailiff. The aftermath was incredibly swift and absolutely brutal. Because the restraining order was proven fraudulent and she had committed crimes against the property owner, her tenancy rights were effectively voided. I went home that very same afternoon, packed all of her designer knockoffs into black garbage bags, and left them with a building concierge. She is currently out on bail, heavily in debt to her attorney, and facing serious felony charges. She will more than likely serve prison time. She has no apartment, absolutely zero credibility. Her social media accounts have been completely abandoned, and she certainly does not have a Birkin. It is honestly amazing how fast someone unravels when the fake reality they try to curate online crashes headfirst into the concrete wall of the actual legal system. Always protect your peace, monitor your credit score, and for the love of everything, keep your home security cameras plugged in. If you enjoyed watching an unbelievable sense of entitlement get utterly dismantled by the justice system, hit that subscribe button before your partner tries to change your relationship status too.